Welcome to another Ziva Math video. In this video, we will teach you how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. Use the chapters to navigate to the different topics in the video if needed. Let's start with adding integers. When adding positive integers, go ahead and just add them. 6 plus 8 equals 14. 5 plus 3 equals 8. When adding two negative integers, you'll want to follow the rule. When adding integers with the same sign, add the absolute values of the numbers and keep the sign. For -4 plus -7, you're adding integers with the same sign. The absolute value of -4 is 4, and the absolute value of -7 is 7. 4 plus 7 is 11, and you'll keep the signs negative. -4 plus -7 equals -11. -10 plus -2 is also adding two negative numbers. You'll take the absolute value of -10, which is 10, and -2, which is 2, and add them together. 10 plus 2 is 12. You'll keep the signs negative. -10 plus -2 equals -12. When you add integers with different signs, you'll subtract the absolute values of the numbers and keep the sign of the number with the largest absolute value. Let's take a look at how this works with 6 plus -8. The absolute value of 6 is 6, and the absolute value of -8 is 8. So the -8 has a larger absolute value. You will be subtracting the absolute values and we'll have 8 minus 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. You keep the sign of the number with the larger absolute value, in this case -8, which makes 6 plus -8 equal -2. 14 plus -4 will work the same way, as it's also adding integers with different signs. The absolute value of 14 is 14, and the absolute value of -4 is 4. The absolute value of 14 is larger, so you'll do 14 minus 4. 14 minus 4 equals 10. 14 had the larger absolute value and it is positive. 14 plus -4 equals 10. -7 plus 4 is adding integers with different signs. The absolute value of -7 is 7, and the absolute value of 4 is 4. The absolute value of -7 is larger, so you'll do 7 minus 4. 7 minus 4 equals 3. -7 had the larger absolute value, and it's negative, so your answer will be negative. -7 plus 4 equals -3. With -3 plus 9, you're adding integers with different signs, which means you'll need to subtract the absolute values of the numbers. The absolute value of -3 is 3, and the absolute value of 9 is 9. 9 has the larger absolute value, so you'll be subtracting 3 from 9. 9 minus 3 is 6. Because 9 has the larger absolute value and is positive, your answer will be positive. -3 plus 9 equals 6. Now let's subtract integers. You've been doing problems like 8 minus 6 and 14 minus 7 for years. For subtraction problems like these, don't worry about the integer rule. Just subtract like you've always done. 8 minus 6 is 2, and 14 minus 7 is 7. When you have problems like 6 minus -8, we do need to use the rule for subtracting integers. The rule is that you keep the sign of the first integer the same, change subtraction to addition, and then change the sign of the second integer. Once this is done, you'll follow the rules for adding integers, so it's important for you to practice adding integers first. With 6 minus -8, we keep the first integer the same, so +6 remains +6. Then we change subtraction to addition, and we change the sign of the second integer. -8 becomes +8. 6 plus 8 equals 14. So 6 minus -8 equals 14. We'll work -4 minus -7 the same way. We keep -4 exactly the same, -4. We change subtraction to addition, Then we change the sign of the second integer. -7 will become +7. We now have -4 plus 7, so we're following the addition rules for adding integers with different signs. That says we subtract 7 minus 4, which is 3, and because we keep the sign of the number with the larger absolute value, in this case the 7, -4 minus -7 equals +3. We'll follow the subtracting integer rule for -9 minus 5 as well. -9 remains -9. We change subtraction to addition, and we change the sign of the +5 to -5. And we'll want to put parentheses around the -5. Now we're adding integers with the same sign, and that addition rule says we add the absolute values and keep the sign. -9 plus -5, 9 plus 5 is 14. -9 plus -5 equals -14. The next problem is -6 minus -2. Here, we keep the sign of the first integer, so -6 will remain -6. We change subtraction to addition, and we change the sign of the second integer, so -2 becomes +2. -6 plus 2 is adding integers with different signs, and that rule tells us to subtract. 6 minus 2 is 4, and we'll keep the sign of the number with the larger absolute value, in this case, the -6, which will make the 4 -4. -6 minus -2 equals -4. Now let's take a look at multiplying and dividing integers. The rules for multiplying and dividing integers are the same. If the integers have the same sign, your answer will be positive. If the integers have different signs, then the answer will be negative. We're going to start with multiplication. If you're moving into an intermediate or middle grade level, this may be the first year you see the dot used as a multiplication sign, or the parentheses, like in the third example, -6 times -5 used for multiplication. Starting at the top, we have 3 times 4, positive times a positive, but also the same type of problem you learned how to multiply with. This is integers with the same sign, so the answer will be positive. 3 times 4 equals 12. -8 times 4 is multiplying integers with different signs. We'll multiply 8 by 4 as usual, which gives us 32. And because we're multiplying integers with different signs, the product of 32 will be negative. -8 times 4 equals -32. -6 times -5 is multiplying integers with the same sign, a negative times a negative. 6 times 5 equals 30. And the product will be positive because we're multiplying two negative integers, and our rule says when multiplying integers with the same sign, the product will be positive. In 9 times -2, you see the -2 in parentheses. Because we have the negative sign next to our operation sign, the parentheses help you see that the 2 is negative. 9 times 2 is 18, and the product will be -18 because we multiplied integers with different signs. The same rules apply to division. Starting at the top, we have 36 divided by 6, a positive divided by a positive, but also the same type of problem you learned how to divide with. This is integers with the same sign, so the answer will be positive. 36 divided by 6 equals 6. In the second example, you see a fraction bar. Remember, this fraction bar tells you to divide. 45 divided by -9 is a positive divided by a negative, integers with different signs. We'll divide 45 by 9, which is 5, and because we're dividing integers with different signs, the quotient of 45 divided by -9 is -5. The next example is -16 divided by -2. Don't get confused with the parentheses here. They're just being used to show that the 2 is negative. This is a division problem. 16 divided by 2 is 8, and the quotient is positive 8 because we divided two negative integers. When dividing integers with the same sign, the quotient is positive. -24 divided by 8 is dividing integers with different signs. 24 divided by 8 is 3, and the quotient is -3 because we divided a negative by a positive. We divided integers that have different signs. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Ziva Math for more videos.